Well, if you're here to learn about ticks, you're in the right place. And tonight we're going to be getting our presentation from Jim Clover. He's a retired public health biologist with a specialty in vector-borne disease and vector control. His emphasis on ticks developed during his 25 years with California Department of Health Services and subsequent years as a consultant in California and Oregon. Jim developed and coordinated a statewide Lyme disease monitoring program for the state of California and served on various committees and advisory panels to the state and governor. He's traveled extensively in Northern California and Oregon in his work and developed intimate knowledge of ticks, their habitats, and their life cycles. He's co-authored numerous publications or published studies on ticks and other vectors. And Jim is a runner and works in his woodlands. He lives on acreage in the Applegate Valley with his wife, Annette, and 2 horses and a cat. And with that, I will welcome Jim up here and we will hand off and get his presentation loaded up. Come on up here, Jim, and I'll mic up, you hold that. Okay. Okay. RC, how's the view look? That Jim's view does not look right. So okay. Look good? Okay. With that, I'll hand it off to Jim. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Eugene. All right, ticks. And before, I've got a whole bunch of slides here to see, but, I had forgotten this slide that's on the screen right now. Take a good look. The tick in the center is what we call a flat tick. It's unfed. It has not had a blood meal yet. And then go straight up to the top and go to the right clockwise. And you can see as it's getting blood, it's getting a little larger and a little larger until it gets up to the 11 o'clock tick. And that one is about half engorged. And that takes about 3 days of feeding. And it's going to remain on the host until it's on for about 7 days. So it's going to get larger than that tick. And that's just the progression that occurs as it is feeding. After 7 days or so, it'll drop off and continue the life cycle. Well, I'll talk more about the life cycle, but that actually is I had forgotten that was a good progression slide. So we'll keep going here if I can find the right thing. Okay. Ticks. In general, there are 2 kinds of ticks, and they're in the class Arachnida, which is where spiders are too. But they don't even act like spiders. They don't look like spiders very much at all. There are 2 kinds that we have here well, actually, there are 20 different kinds that we have in Oregon. In the Jackson County, Josephine County, we probably will see 3 to 4 species, and that's it. There are more here, but most ticks, most of the species, are species specific as to what they will feed on. A lot of them are on birds, and that's the only thing they'll feed on. They won't get on you. They won't get on me. They won't get on a mouse or anything else. And we don't see them. I've never seen them, and I worked with ticks for a long time now. So again, I'm going to concentrate today on 4 different ticks that we have here in the local area. And I'm going to specifically talk about one tick that's the most prevalent tick we've got here and the most dangerous one. And that's Ixodes pacificus. That's the one that carries Lyme disease and several other diseases as well. But we do have soft ticks here too. They call them soft ticks, and I don't know why they call them soft ticks, but they are different. They have a different life cycle. They feed multiple times as an adult, well, as a feeding tick. Very short periods of time. They'll get on you, feed for 15 or 20 minutes, drop off, and go back to a nest. They're nest ticks, we call them. And there are a lot of them that occur on birds that we won't ever see. There are also two that will get on humans, and they often occur above 3,000 to 4,000 feet elevation in the area. Up at Green Springs, I know they had an outbreak last year of these. They can cause diseases, a relapsing fever in humans. They're in the nests of animals, mice and wood rats that occur in old cabins. And so if you've got an old cabin or you're staying in a cabin or something up there and you're there and something bit you during the night or during the day, if you're just lounging around, it could be one of these. And you probably won't see it because it bites and it's gone back in the nest. You go about your business and you get back the next night, same thing happens. So it's one that I don't see regularly at all. It's not a common tick in this area. It's widespread in Oregon, but again, it's at a higher elevation generally. And so it's one that to be aware of, but you're probably never going to see it. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Now the difference is if you look at the tick from the top, and you can see quite a big difference. You can see a lot of the tick, the hard tick, but not so much. The soft ticks are pretty ugly, I think, frankly, but okay. The life cycle briefly, in the hard tick, basically the female lays eggs and she can lay anywhere from 1,500 to 6,000 eggs once she gets to be an adult, okay? All at one time, and then she dies. The eggs hatch out into larvae. The larvae have 6 legs instead of 8, which the adult and the nymph have. And it's very, very small. I have some examples. When we get done with this, we can all come up and look at live ticks and ticks in alcohol as well. But the larvae have to have a blood meal before they can go to the next stage, okay? And they get that, but they're very, very small. They have to get that blood meal from probably a mouse, a bird, or something that's very small, and they're found in leaf litter and duff around in the forest, okay? They get that blood meal and they have to process the blood, and they do that, and then they molt. They probably go into a quiescent stage, and then they molt and become a nymph. And the nymph is a little bit larger, it's still pretty small, and it requires a blood meal before it can go to the next stage. It gets that blood meal from, again, a small animal. It's found in leaf litter, it's found on the ground basically. And so whatever's down there on that ground in the leaf litter, moss, a situation like that, and the temperature has to be right. So it's going to be a mouse, a rodent of some sort, a small animal. A deer happens to be laying down, yeah, they can get there. If you're laying down in the leaf litter in the forest, yeah, you too. It gets the blood meal.
So it has to be a mammal. They have to.
It does not have to be a mammal. It can be a bird.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. And it gets that blood meal and it's got to process it. It drops off the animal that it's feeding on, process it, and that takes a period of time. And it then can become an adult. And when it becomes an adult, it molts into the adult stage, it has sexual differentiation. It becomes either a male or a female. Prior to that, it's all the same, okay? So the female then has to have a blood meal before it can go lay its eggs and die. So 3 times during its life of this tick, it has to have a blood meal. And those are separate blood meals. And if it starts feeding on an animal and drops it, is taken off the animal somehow, dislodges it, it's over. It's not going to get a full blood meal. It's going to die. Okay. So in any event, you got that cycle going on. It takes 3 blood samples. It can pick up a disease during one of those blood samples from the animal it's feeding on. And that's one of the problems that we have. This is the tick that is most common here right now. It's out here in huge numbers. My wife and I collected 150 in an hour or so 2 days ago, easily. And just picking them off the grass as we walk around. We got adults only. These will be up here for you to see after I finish gabbing here. But the male also can feed. It doesn't require a feed, but it will feed. I've had one bite me and I watched it do it. So they're capable of doing that. They can carry the disease too and theoretically pass it all, but they can't take a lot of blood. So the chances of it moving a disease along the whole situation here is unlikely. But the nymph, of course, is big time, and I'll explain why later. The larva, if we talk about most diseases, it's not involved because the disease does not go through the egg. The egg hatches out into the larva. Sun-fed, it's not going to be infected. But the larva can pick up a disease when it does feed and pass it on to the next stage, the nymph, and on to the next stage, which is the adult. So you can see the different size on my finger there of the 4 stages, the 3 stages, the nymph in the middle and the 2 adults on the right and the larva on the left. Very small. The life cycle for that particular tick, the deer tick, it's called, actually it's the western black-legged tick, is the proper common name. And the life cycle takes 2 years. And basically what I want you to see from this is winter is when the adults are out. Right now, they're out there big time. This is a winter tick. It'll disappear. You won't be able to find them in May, late May. Got a problem with the mic here, apparently. Okay. So now is the time, one of the prime times, spring times, especially because that's when the nymphs are out as well, is when this tick is going to be most prevalent and the most dangerous. Summer, interestingly enough, we get a hard winter and people say to me, oh, we've had a really tough winter. We had a lot of snow a few years ago. And that means we won't have a bad tick here. Just the opposite. The summer is what kills these ticks. They need a lot of moisture, condensation. They need that, they can't, I learned this the hard way. I was collecting ticks when I first started working with Lyme disease in California. And I get them in a vial like this, and I was so proud of myself. I got 25 or 30 of them, I guess, and I drove back to the office with them sitting there in the sunshine right beside me. They were all dead when I got back. Sunshine kills these things. They can't take direct sunlight. So, which is one reason why you don't see the adult ticks out in the summer either. So, yeah, tick identification. The ones that we have here, we've got a dermacenter and an ixodes. The ixodes is the one you just saw pictures of, and that's the most common one. And the other one is well, that's the ixodes is the common one. We have another one called dermacenter, which is the Western Pacific coast tick or something like that. I don't know. The common names have me befuddled. But there are some things, if you really want to look at these ticks that you're going to collect, they're easy to identify. There's basically three things you need to look at. You need to look at the mouth parts and look for the anus, because there's a groove on the anus. And I think my next slide shows that. Yeah, this is a dermacenter. Look at, you can see where the anus is, and there's a smiley underneath it. That's in the dermacenter. And in ixodes, should be my next slide. Yeah, here's the difference right here. The groove goes over the anus. In dermacenter, it's underneath the anus. And that's, you can easily tell those apart. But look at the mouth parts as well. On ixodes, the one on the left, the mouth parts are long and slender, and they're stubby and stout on the dermacenter on the right. The other thing that's really noticeable is down on the one on the right, you see little scallops in the bottom. Those are called festoons. And I think my next, no, I think back up and that's, okay, it's not backing up, but that's all right. I can keep going. I have some other slides that will show that. Yeah, I thought it was that one. Yeah, the festoons. Now you can see it's labeled there, and I don't have to explain what I'm talking about. The festoons on the bottom there. Down here, yeah. And up above that, the anal groove. This is a dermacenter, that's smiley underneath. Those two items right there will tell you what you've got, what you're playing with. This is a female ixodes, and you can see, get my pointer back here again. This groove right over the top of the anus right there is over the top and around. And that will confirm that that's an ixodes. But look at the mouth parts up above too. Up here, this is the part that goes in whatever it's feeding on. These on the side are palps. Those are sensory organs. And they lay down when that mouth part goes inside you, and they're just kind of spread out there. And one of the things we'll talk about removing ticks, and I'll show you how their feeding apparatus actually works a little later here. Again, here's a family group of ixodes, a male on the left, female on the right, a larva on the bottom right, and a nymph on the left. These are dermacenter. This is the second most common tick we've got in the area. Pacific coast tick, Dermacenter occidentalis. It's larger, rounder, not diamond shaped like the ixodes, and brownish colored. You'll see this probably more often on dogs than anything else. Horses as well. They get on horses a lot. And this is the one, another one we don't have in Jackson County. They actually have been found in Green Springs a couple of times, I guess, but it's rare in Jackson County. and not at all in Josephine County. This is on the east side, over on the other side of the mountains. And it's the most common tick over there. They do not have Ixodes ticks over there. So this is the one you'll see if you go over to Klamath Falls or anywhere on the eastern side. And this is another one we have here. It's widespread in Oregon. And this is the one that they call the dog tick. And two things to see here. First of all, very easy to tell if you've got a female or a male. Why isn't that? Okay, there we go. This is the female, and this part up here is white. This part down here, the abdomen, which will swell up with blood, is brown, kind of reddish brown. On the male, these parts right here on each side look like lightning strikes actually on the real tick. And they're very visible, and this is not a great photograph to show that because there's other white in here, but those two lines back down here, look like lightning strikes. This one can carry diseases as well. It's not one we often see. It will bite humans, but and it is here in Jackson County, but not as common as the other two we've got. Okay, hosts. All kinds of hosts for these things, and you can see the ticks on the ears of this mouse. I don't see any on this one over here, but they're there. A great host for these ticks. They also can carry diseases, and the ticks can pick up those diseases from these guys. And this one is a wood rat. You familiar with wood rats, pack rats? Same thing. These are a great host for a lot of things. Bubonic plague for one thing, but a lot of ticks with these guys too. Lizards. And I need a poster here saying save the lizards, because they're good guys in this whole thing. A big host of Ixodes pacificus. And Ixodes pacificus is the one that carries Lyme disease. And they've done studies on this. I did a study in California where I was testing the nymphal stage of Ixodes pacificus in an area that was getting a lot of Lyme disease cases. And we got like 14 to 15% infection rate in that, which was really high. But we would then test the adults and we'd get 4%. So that infection rate was dropping precipitously, actually, from the nymphal stage to the adult stage. And it should be just the opposite. It should be going up. And so one of my coworkers started testing lizards. Got no indication that they had Lyme disease antibodies at all, nothing. So it turns out what was going on was an infected tick will bite this lizard and lose the infection and not infect the lizard either. The blood was going in and killing the spirochete in the tick, that's a real big plus. They're still doing studies on that one. What was that?
Ticks on lizard's head.
Yeah, what are they? Okay. On this one, yeah. Let's see. Right there is a tick, engorged. There's one that's partially engorged in the middle and another one that's engorged down there. So I personally have collected over 50 ticks on a single lizard. So they host a lot of ticks.
Wow, I would think they would eat them.
You'd think so too, and they probably do eat some. the question was, or the point out was, they might eat the ticks. The lizards might eat the ticks, and they may.
So it's because they're down in the leaf litter or down on the ground
Yeah.
where the
Yeah.
ticks are.
Lizards and a lot of predators use movement to get their prey. Ticks don't move around very much, so they're not easily spotted by lizards or other animals. So this is an alligator lizard. You can see the ticks there pretty readily, I think. Oops, went the wrong way. Yeah, down here.
Do the alligator lizards have the same effect on the diseases?
They do. They do. Other hosts, deer are a big host, and they host the adults and the nymphs, and probably some larvae too, because they're laying down in the leaf litter, and that's where those ticks are. Bears, turkeys, horses. Now this is Josephine County. This is something that was in the paper in 2016. It was kind of interesting. You can read that. But cats, we get ticks off our cat and certainly off our horses, and dogs, people. And the problem with all these things is they carry diseases. Lyme disease, of course, is the major one that we're concerned about. Colorado tick fever primarily is carried by the one on the east side of the mountains, Cascades. Rocky Mountain spotted fever. It's interesting that Rocky Mountain spotted fever, the area that has the most cases of Rocky Mountain spotted fever is North Carolina. Not here and not in Colorado, but that's where it was first noted, is in Colorado, and was named that. And it's fairly common, in mostly eastern Oregon. And it's carried by Dermacentor andersoni, the tick that's over there. Ehrlichiosis, that's one that occurs in humans and as well as animals. We had a horse that had it at one point out in the Applegate. And there are other diseases too, and one is that gets talked about right now is alpha-gal, the meat allergy that a person just recently died of. I don't know where that was, but it wasn't around here. We don't have the tick that carries it around here. It's the Lone Star tick, and found in Arkansas, Texas, and Louisiana, mostly down there. Tick paralysis, the ticks that we have here, right here in the valley, can cause that. That's an interesting thing. And if a tick bites back behind the head here, the upper neck, it can paralyze you. Not everybody, but you get a reaction. It can paralyze you. It does it to animals as well as humans. Both Ixodes pacificus and Dermacentor occidentalis, the two most common ticks we've got here, can do that. It's rare, but it definitely can happen. Lyme disease, I'm sure you all know something about Lyme disease, and I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to be talking about this, but I just will point out that if you get a rash like that, that is around this. I get a rash sort of like this, not that large, but like this from a bite every time I get bit by things. It's just like crazy. But what happens is if you get a ring around like this, and over time it expands out, all the way around, which this one has, obviously. It started here and it just kept migrating out. And same here. That's Lyme disease. You can go to a doctor with that. You can go to the bank with that and say, that's Lyme disease, really. One of the biggest problems with Lyme disease is diagnosis. The blood tests that they have are iffy. A lot of false positives, a lot of false negatives, and it's just not worth doing.
Is it contagious?
Puck?
Is it contagious? Lyme disease contagious?
Is it contagious?
No, it's not contagious. I'm sorry. I love my hearing aid broken this last week, so I'm not hearing very well.
So let's say if I got it, I couldn't give it to one of my
No,
kids.
no,
Like that.
no.
Not
No.
tick that you know.
One of the things that's recommended by CDC and me is if you get a tick bite and you got a rash like the size of like this, okay? Get an ink pen and just draw around the edge like this. And next week, look at it. And if it's gotten big like that, go to the doctor. What it should do is disappear this way. And so pay attention to that if you get a rash or if you have a bite. Be aware of that. Okay. People always ask, how long does a tick have to be on before it can give you a disease? Depends on what the disease is. If it's a virus, not very long at all. If it's Lyme disease, which is a bacteria, it takes a while. And the reason that it takes a while is that if the tick has Borrelia burgdorferi, which is the bacteria that causes Lyme disease, it's in the midgut in the tick. And if it's in the midgut and the tick is, taking a blood meal and it gets down there, the temperature changes. And when the temperature changes, those spirochetes, the bacteria, start moving around and they will migrate out the mouth of the tick into whatever it's feeding on. And that's going to take some time. When a tick first bites you, it's putting a lot of things in you, but not from its midgut. It's putting in something to make the blood flow more readily, to numb the area so you don't dislodge the tick. They don't like to have their feeding interrupted. So that takes 24 hours probably to set the table for their dinner. And then they start imbibing blood, and the blood goes in there and gets in there and changes the temperature things, and then the spirochetes start moving out. So they say that 24 to 48 hours now is what it takes for them to actually get going and move into a new body. So. We have it here. This is when I first moved up, retired and moved up here. I got together with CDC and we did some collecting in Jackson and Josephine counties, and we picked up plenty. It's here. We got it from in the tick about 3%, and we were testing adults only at that point, so that's what we got. In wood rats, we got 19%, and in field mice, we got 18% and 4% in a different species. So it's here, and it's circulating very happily, doing
Are
fine.
you meaning the Lyme disease is here?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, it's here. And again, the fence lizards are great because they're keeping it down. The life cycle, let's go through that again because it is fairly important to know when they are here. If we look at, let's start with the one on the far right. The adult female lays eggs, and again, maybe 3,000 eggs, and then she dies. But the eggs hatch out into larvae. We're going around clockwise now on the outside ring. And the larvae are there in the summer and the fall and the spring. And somewhere during the probably late summer or late winter, actually, of the following year, those will turn into nymphs. So they're hanging out for a long time there, doing nothing but waiting. They're very patient. What did I do? Pressed something wrong. I leaned on it. So they're there until they molt and turn into nymphs in the spring of the next year. And in June, July, and August, we'll be seeing the nymphs until about the middle of August. And one thing I would point out, in September, there's not much happening. It's kind of a free month for us. We don't have to worry about the adults or the nymphs or the larvae, which we weren't worried about anyway. Okay, so again, we're talking about a 2-year cycle. There's a lot of dead time in there, but the big problems for us is the wintertime and the springtime. In late fall and the middle of fall, middle of October, we'll start seeing the adults again. And I've been watching that for years, and I've never missed by more than 2 weeks. And this year it was 7 days I was off. But that's when I first start seeing those first adult ticks. And I'll see those until May, possibly pick 1 or 2 up in June. And then they're gone until October again. The nymphs, on the other hand, I've got 3 that I collected yesterday. They're live. And I don't usually get them this early. I had to work kind of hard to get those in the same amount of time. When I got those 3, Annette and I picked up about 150 adults.
Out of leaf litter? Where did you get them? Where did you pick them up at?
Out in the Applegate.
I know, but in leaf litter?
I'm going to show you. I've got pictures of where these things are found. Yeah, definitely. That's a great question, because that's one of the important things you need to know. Where they are and when they're there. I'm not moving that forward.
Okay, there.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, that was my fault, and I apologize for that. Okay, these are the risks, and we'll get into where they are here in a moment, but primarily lack of knowledge of when they're there and where they are, which we're going to get to. But the time of the year is also important. The activities, we live here. That's one of the activities that gives us a risk in this area. We've got vectors and reservoirs and agents. Infection rate, I wouldn't worry too much about that. It hasn't changed in the 30 years I've been looking at this stuff. The number of tick bites and the duration we just talked about, it has to be on there for a while. The number of tick, how many of you have been bitten by a tick in a year, this last year? 2, 3, 4, okay. Yeah, 5 maybe, okay. 1 tick. I've been bit 3 times in that year, I think. But, you know, I'm probably a little closer to that possibility than you guys. But, you know, if you were being bit 15 times a year, your chances are going up that you can get infected with something. So that's a risk. improper removal, and we'll talk about that, a big part of that. Delayed diagnosis and delayed treatment. And the delayed diagnosis, one of the things is pay attention to the bite site of a tick. And that can speed up that whole process a lot and help you do something about it. Okay, where they are. These are a few of the people that I hike with, and they're doing exactly the wrong thing, and I'm going to tell you why. There are ticks there. They know that. I know that. The dog knows that. The Ixodes pacificus are found on the upslope side of a trail. You walk along a trail, and most of the trails around here are partially side hill, okay? There's an upslope side and a downslope side. And the ticks, they've got all those legs, 8 legs. They don't walk very far. And then when they walk somewhere, they'll go dead level or downhill. They don't go uphill. So if you've got a tick that is here, it will not go up to the trail here. It will go down to the next edge. Anything up here for maybe 20 yards is going to go downhill to the edge and be right along that edge right there. There won't be any ticks over on this side. And it's stark. I mean, it's amazing. I would bet, I would give somebody, if you give me 10 cents for every tick I pick up on the upside, I'll give you $2 for every tick you pick up on the downside. I won't owe you a thing, promise you. They're all on the upslope side, lots of them. And you'll find a piece of grass over here on the upside that can have 5 ticks on it. They're all there. And again, here's some, so, okay, I guess my point back here is, if you're going to sit down and take a break on your hike, go to the other side of the trail. Don't go on that upside. It's more comfortable on the upside. So that's wrong.
Sit where their backpack is.
Yeah, same thing. You're out there, you start out and it's kind of cold in the morning, you got a sweatshirt on, just like that. And it warms up, you take that off, you don't throw it on the ground on the upslope side. Hang it from a branch or something. But if you put it down there, you're going to have ticks on the back. You throw that over your shoulder when you're heading back, and those ticks are up here already then. So, yeah. So, bad things to do here. You can tell Jim enjoyed that, okay? So, yeah. Good tick habitat for adults. We'll get to the nymphs here in a second here. Nymphs are down here on the leaf litter, and they're, to collect them, you can't walk along and look and find them. The adults, you can go back here and walk along just like that and just pick them off the grass and put them in your vial. But down here, you can't do that. You can't see them for starters, and they're on probably the underside of that leaf and just poking their legs around the edge. You're never going to see them. So you have to drag a flag over there, some flannel sort, to pick them up and collect them. And they are, again, are found, well, I found 3 yesterday. And again, that's kind of early for me to be finding them, but part of the problem is, if you're dragging something over there to collect these, if it's wet, and it's wintertime, it's wet a lot, not as much as it ought to be, but your flag is going to get wet and heavy and not work anyway. So it's difficult to collect them, and that's where they are. And that's why they're more of a problem as it warms up and you're taking your break, and maybe flat here, but you're going to take a break so you put your sweatshirt down on the leaf litter and you lean up against a tree and sit down and lean against the tree to have your lunch. Bad idea. Find a place that's not like that. This is what the adults look like out there. And you can see what they've got 8 legs, and the front legs are kind of long and like this, and they're hanging onto a piece of grass. And then when they're questing, they throw these things out, and they look a little grappling hooks on the ends. And if you pass by and brush against them, boom, they're going up your leg. So that's how they operate, and that's how to find them, just like that. And you can find, yesterday, I think I saw 5 on one piece of grass like that. They're all over right now.
Do they
And
jump from the bushes?
Hmm?
Do they jump?
they don't, for Jim Ryman, no, they do not jump. They don't move. They wait. And interestingly enough, they don't have eyes. If we went back to that picture of the structure of these things, they don't have eyes. They're not looking for you. They're waiting for air movement as you go by, and any kind of movement that they can sense something is there. They don't walk around very much. They don't need eyes.
Yeah, I've seen them on a long blade of grass hanging over the trail edge, and I've kind of observed them, a deer trail, and you literally, all you have to do is brush up against them.
Absolutely.
I didn't realize the grappling hooks you said.
Oh yeah,
That makes
they
perfect
got
sense.
little.
They
Actually,
get right on you.
might be able to even see that with the thing up here when we look at these. But that's what if you look at this one is not questing, it's up there resting. This one is questing, it's got its legs out, same here. This one, those front legs are the ones that attach to whatever's brushing up against there. So things to consider here. If you're walking along a trail and on the upslope side, you're walking along, and where are they going to get you? How high does the grass grow normally? You're going to get a tick down here somewhere, usually. Now, if you're on a bank like this, it could be sticking out a foot from the bank, and it's up here. But normally, you're going to get them right down here. So what is important to do when you're out there hiking around, walking around, even in your backyard or on a trail or along a roadway even, any edge is fairly important, is look at your legs occasionally. And CDC has recommendations that you wear light colored pants and tuck the pants into your socks. I don't do that personally because I spend a lot of time just looking like this. My wife and I walk around. We're humorous to watch hiking. We walk around and stop every once in a while, walk around each other, looking at each other's rear end, I guess. But if you can see the tick walking around on you, that's a good thing. You know it's there for starters, and you can brush it off and then drop it on the downslope side of the trail, not the up. Maybe you know it around too much. Thank you, Eugene. So, pay attention. Know you're in the right area to collect ticks, and then watch yourself. Look at your legs. Look at, if you do pick one up, and it's okay. What's in the tick needs to remain in the tick. That's pretty important. And by picking it up like this and dropping it over here, you're not going to get anything that was in the tick on you. Don't crush it. Don't try to crush it. They're pretty hard to crush. And then after you drop it, look at your hand. They stick to your hand pretty well. So you want to make sure it's not there when on the other side of your finger. So, oh yeah, it's not there. And it's walking up here. So Pay attention to what you got and what you do with it. Okay, let's see. Yeah, here's another. Actually, both of those guys are questing, and this one is too. All the three of them have those front legs out with the grappling hooks.
Jim,
Okay. You didn't get them all. One got in you, okay? And this is the other thing I hear a lot of. Yeah, he buried his head in me. They don't do that. They have that mouth part. That's the part that goes in. What happens is your body can swell up around that, and it looks like, you know, it's got half its body in you. It doesn't. It's just that one part that's actually in you. So this is what you do. You get some fine-tipped tweezers, and I would prefer more fine than this, but what you don't want to do is grab them back here. And these are not fine-tipped, okay? These are blunt, and this is not the way to remove them. I've done it myself, and you know, I felt like I had to at the time, but you want to get them out, and so you do this. But if you're, a tick basically is a needle and syringe, okay? If you look at the needle down here, this is the syringe. You don't want to squeeze the syringe because what's it going to do? Anything that moves out of that syringe is going to go out the needle point, and that's in you at this point. So you don't want to do that. You want to get some fine tip tweezers and get as close to your skin as possible and lift right straight up. Remember the mouth parts that we saw earlier on the tick? It's retrobarbed. They're all retrobarbed, so that, you know, you finally pull them out, those barbs are aimed back this way, so it keeps the tick from getting dislodged. This is their strategy to get their blood meal and continue their life. So, and because it's barbed, you don't want to twist it. You don't want to jerk on it. You want to just pull it right straight up slowly, very slowly. If you do that slowly, the tick will release. And it, you know, those are not real rigid barbs, but they're rigid enough to stay in there if you do it wrong. So what happens is you'll get your skin coming up, and you say, oh man, just hold it very slowly and it'll pop and you'll come out. But don't go like that. You break off the mouth parts. Again, remember the mouth parts we saw. On the Ixodes tick, they're long, with a lot of barbs, but fragile, and it will break. And if the spirochetes are moving from the midgut by then up through the mouth parts, that's where the spirochetes will be, and you've just left them inside your body. Plus, if you break off the mouth part, you can get a secondary infection. That's going to really confuse any kind of evaluation. If you go to the doctor and say, well, yeah, you know, I've got an infection there or something, and they don't know what to think, you don't know what to think. So remove them correctly is the big part of that part, okay? Yeah, this shows the mouth parts and what happens. Dermacenter, again, they have that broad, blunt mouth part. So their strategy is they don't have the long one that's barbed as much. They lay down some cement. And that cement that they use actually kills the skin after about 7 days. Just about time the tick fills up with blood, and the weight then takes the whole thing off. And you probably have removed ticks from your dog, and you get a bunch of skin with it. And that's what happened. That was probably a dermacenter that you removed. So, you know, they've got their strategies too. We have to develop ours a little more. So that actually is a pretty good slide. That shows the mouth parts and what happens and why it's sometimes difficult to remove the ticks. Again, here's the mouth part of an ixodes. But the other thing about removing them is you don't want to put anything caustic on the tick. Again, that syringe needle business. If you're putting something caustic on the back end of the tick, it's going to probably regurgitate, and that mouth part is still in you. It's not a good idea. You want everything in that tick to remain in the tick.
Twisting it.
What?
What about twisting the tip?
No, that with the barbs, that will break the mouth part off. So you can see what the tick is actually doing there and how you need to approach that. The one up above here, that would be a difficult one. It obviously has swollen up a lot around the mouth part. So you're going to have to, with your tweezers, press down and as far as you can to get down there and remove that. But what you don't want to do is squeeze the back part of the tick at all, if you can possibly help it. Yeah, here's how not to do it. And yeah, that shows pretty well. Don't squeeze that part. Heat, alcohol, anything like that, again, tick is going to go bleh, and you don't want that. This piece of equipment on the right can work really well if you don't slide it forward. That would just shear off the mouth part, it looks like to me. But if you pry it, that might be worth doing. But I would be hesitant to use that the way they have illustrated it right there. Not a good idea, I don't think. Okay, you got the tick, you got it out. What are you going to do with it? Most people feel like it's very important to kill the tick. And that's fine, that's good. But there are ways to do it and ways not to do it. You don't want to put a brick down and another brick, slam it out. That's scattering everything that was in the tick every which way. And actually, Willy Bergdorfer, the person whose name is given to the spirochete that causes Lyme disease, got tick that way. Not exactly that way, but he got it from mashing a tick. He was in the lab when he did it, and it splattered and he got some on it, and you can actually get Lyme disease that way. So
from the inside of the tick,
right,
fluids or tick or blood or whatever.
Yeah, yep.
Okay, gotcha.
So
Tiny cuts in the skin.
yeah, and you know, the other thing is we've all got tiny cuts in our hands. You know, if you get the inside of the tick and rub it all over your fingers, there's no reason why it just couldn't get any that way. It would be rare. I wouldn't want to chance it. I know people who have had Lyme disease, and I would rather have bubonic plague, to tell the truth. I know how to treat that. So this is not a disease to mess around with at all. This is not a fun one. So save the ticks. I want to do that for a couple of reasons. You want to know what kind of tick it is, because they can carry different things, and that can help a physician identify what the possibilities are. It can also tell you how damaged the tick is, if the mouth parts are still there, or if they're in where that tick came from, because you removed it wrong. Things like that are very important. You could also test the tick. It's kind of I'm not going to say it's not worthwhile, but it's not going to gain you anything. You're still going to have to pay attention to the bite site and everything else, whether you know it's positive or not. And not all positive ticks are actually going to convey that to the next person that feeds on. You don't know. So, but it's nice to know, if the tick is entire. You can see how much blood it has had. I think I have another slide showing, yeah, I do. Showing the progression of how it is. So if I got a tick on me and I pulled it off and it was, looked like this, okay, that's probably only a day in or so. And this one I would consider a little bit longer. If you got one like this, first of all, it would be easy to squeeze that, which is not good. But also, that's been in there for 7 days. I think that says, yeah. So if you were bitten by a tick and you brought it into me and showed me a tick and it looked like that one, I would tell you something different than if it came in looking like this. It's this is not really growth, it's filling up with blood. So I think that's about, well, let's see, collecting them. First of all, I would like to say that I'm going to give you some homework, and I'm going to request that you go out this coming week. It's not supposed to rain until for another 6 or 7 days, I think. Go out wherever you live or get on a trail and go look for ticks. Find a tick. Find a tick. I think it's extremely valuable to see them. You've seen them. You pointed that out. And I think, without knowing, you can look at these pictures all day. It's not the same as seeing a single tick out there on a piece of grass and saying, oh, yeah, I was going to walk right by that. And you don't need to collect it, but I want you to see it. I think that's important for you to actually see a tick out there in the wild and realize what they're doing. So one of the ways that we collect, this is interesting, the picture on the right, who's going to get all the ticks? The one on the right, yes. But this guy, he should be collecting over here. But this is what we call a flag, and it's just a piece of white flannel, white because you can see the tick on the white. And you flag that, just drag that along the trail, along the edge, and stop and look at it every once in a while and pick the ticks off of there. You'll be, I think you'll be very interested in seeing what you find. So that's your homework assignment. Go home this week and find a tick. Yes. Yeah,
the city parks where they mow the lawn every week. Would you find ticks in the park very often?
No, that's not a place I would go to look. Well, it depends on the park, of course. Where they're mowing like that and weed whacking the edge, the upper slope edge, that helps. That helps a lot. But I have found ticks there. It's, there's a combination of things you need. You need to have the right vegetation. You need to have the slope, and where it needs to be intermittent shade. They don't like direct sun for very long, okay? And what else? Yeah, parks in Jackson County, one place I collect a lot is Forest Park. Collect them, but you go across the street in the Britt Woods, same sort of habitat. I don't find as many there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
usually in mowed areas, I have a small park that I maintain and where the grasses have been mowed and that activities happen, you're not gonna find them, but they are literally opportunists along trails, pathways, where blades of grass, and I've actually observed them.
Yeah.
I remember years in the paper, they had a guy, and it might have been you, waving a flag and it had ticks on it. Well,
Could have been.
but they're usually hanging over the edge of a trail, along a trail on the end of a blade of grass. And I've done it, I've experimented where you just brush against it and literally, I didn't know they had the little meat hooks or what do you call them, fangs or the grapples, but they literally will just brush right on and like a magnet. So
Yeah.
they're opportunists waiting for a host to walk by.
That's the other
Here,
thing that
yeah,
you can,
whatever.
there's good observations and that's great. And I want the rest of you guys to do that too. One thing you can do, and you can do this too, you see those, brush your leg up against them.
Yep.
And see how good they are at attaching. And watch your leg the whole time and then get them off there. But yeah, that's.
But if you didn't hike very often, you came home from a hike, you'd inspect yourself right away. And
Yeah,
if the tick has been on you less than an hour. Well, how
I wouldn't worry about it. You know, that most of them will get on you and walk around a while. Ixodes pacificus is very aggressive. And if you, I've been running with some of my buddies who at the end of the run, they'll have one actually embedded in their leg. So they're very aggressive. Dermacentor, on the other hand, will walk around on you for 24 hours before they'll say, yeah, it's a human, but I'm really hungry, so I guess I'll try it. And that's the one that in the middle of the night, if something's crawling on you, it'll be a dermacentor. It's not going to be an Ixodes. They'd have been feeding on you long before that. Yeah.
Could you please, since you worked in public health, could you address, a couple of years ago, I was interested in finding some information out. And even though Jackson County had the most reported cases in Oregon, like 12 or so, it's not prevalent, but that was the most of the percentage was here. Jackson County Health Department really wasn't helpful at all.
You mean cases of Lyme?
They even acted like they didn't know what I was talking about.
Okay.
And I was lucky enough to go to vector control, who referred me to Oregon State, and I sent the ticks, and they couldn't do it at their lab. They sent it to Michigan State University to their lab. They sent the results back, and they thought that it didn't have the bacterium in it, identified them as what you call the dog tick, told me not to worry about it. But I'm just wondering, even my personal physician, when I asked about ticks and Lyme disease, really didn't have anything to really discuss. So I hear the public service announcements, more prevalence than HIV and everything else, and you're all gonna die. You know, there are these things that most people don't hear because they don't listen to the radio like that. You know, there's these public service announcements, right? And then nobody knows about it. So could you please, to make me feel better, tell me about our public health service, our Jackson County Health, and why, our Santi or whatever doesn't know anything about it.
Okay. You mentioned something right off the bat, though. You went to vector control. They, in the last 5 years, they've got a new entomologist now who's very interested, and they've got their manager who's very interested in that. They've set up a program, and I've worked with them, and Andrew Parton is the entomologist, and he can do some of the testing in his lab right now. So and also they have a physician from the health department on their board at this point. So they're on board. They're on board. And yeah, and actually they call me up and say, hey, we got something really interesting. And I go up and look at it, and yeah, they do. They're collecting ticks. Andrew has just published a paper on the ticks in Jackson County.
And he's with the vector control?
Vector control.
Gotcha.
Yep. Jackson County Vector Control.
Yep.
Yeah, one more.
That's not answering my question. 2 years ago when I had this tick,
Okay,
even though Jackson County, they had to have information for us to know that Oregon had X amount. And the highest percentage was in Jackson County. Jackson County Health Department should have had that stats.
X
When
amount,
I called them, they didn't know squat about it.
X amount.
Asante didn't know, Asante didn't know anything about it. Okay, vector control, the nice lady, all she could do, I appreciate what they're doing now, but she, the one that helped me get in touch with Oregon State, I
mhm.
sent it to the lab there, got on the phone, talked to some nice people. They couldn't do it there. They didn't have the ability anymore. They sent it to Michigan State. Okay,
Mhm,
and they're the ones. And I'm just saying, how could our health department not have that information? And how could nobody at the hospital or anything, because this has been a big deal for a while, Lyme disease. So that's what I'm asking you to address.
Lyme
Okay.
disease, is what you're talking about. Gotcha.
The question is there a source of information about Lyme disease
There is.
locally?
Again, vector control has that, they have flyers, they're
That's
up to date on that. Also, the reason it was sent to Michigan is this. Michigan has, they have the experts on a couple of diseases, not Lyme disease, but other ones that they can do the testing on. In Jackson County, they can test for Lyme disease. They can't test for babesiosis or some of the other diseases that are carried. And the tick that you had was a dermacenter, obviously. So that's one that they didn't have the disease. They take specialized tests to identify those things.
They couldn't direct me at all. Nothing. They didn't want to see the tick. They didn't want to talk to me. That's
Yeah.
what I'm asking.
Go ahead.
Okay, that I think has changed.
Okay.
I hope so.
Didn't help me 2 years ago, but I'm glad things are improving. Thanks.
Jim, are you done with your slides?
I am. We can.
Okay, so I'm gonna pose some of the questions that are on Zoom.
Okay, sure.
Going back a ways, we had a question of, are those engorged larval ticks on the deer, mouse, or the wood rat, are those nymphs?
Those were nymphs.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't often see adults on mice like that. Adults are usually on a larger animal. Yeah.
Aaron asks, what role do ticks play in the ecosystem?
Again, a common question and a good one. There are things that feed on ticks. Ticks control other populations, which we don't like so much, but that's part of the game. So yeah, there's a reason for ticks.
Kind of like mosquitoes. Right.
Like mosquitoes, yeah.
You mentioned that if a tick bit you in the right place, perhaps on your neck, that you could experience paralysis. Does that self-resolve?
Yeah, actually, that's pretty cool because what happens is if you remove that tick, and this has happened with some children in Sonoma County that I was aware of when I was working down there, and the child was totally paralyzed. They removed the tick, and within hours, the child was moving around.
What kind of tick?
That was an Ixodes pacificus, but usually it has been a dermacenter that has caused that.
It's just a certain spot?
I'm not sure about that, but they were all in the back of the neck there.
Okay, and then when you were talking about like the ticks along the trails and brush, their location, Rebecca asked, are adult Ixodes in grass or mainly or on brush, like higher up on brush as well?
They're mostly on grass. They can be on stems of poison oak as well, but it's the diameter of the grass that's kind of important to them. You notice they had the pictures that I had, they kind of wrapped their legs around, or their legs around the stem of grass. So you don't often, you find dermacenter upon brush, more than you do ixodes. I would point out also that the edge effect is pretty important here, and part of that has to do with the upslope, downslope thing. They're going to an edge, and whether it's a vegetation edge or an edge of a terrain or something like that.
Right, edge often has like
Yeah,
forms and.
and a lot of animals have to deal with that edge effect. We got questions in the back too.
I observe a lot of ticks out at my place, and they're always, we get them when we walk on the trails, brush against grass. If we go off trail, you think you get more, but we actually get less.
I didn't hear that at all.
He said that his experience has been that going off trail, he picks up less ticks.
Yeah,
than when you walk the trail.
yeah. Again, the edge effect. I answered that. You're supposed to ask the question first, I think.
No, not a question,
Yeah, good.
observation.
Doug
He's
asked,
got-
do ticks grab certain types of clothes more than others? Like, will ticks grab certain types of clothing more than others?
Yes, yeah, definitely. In fact, they've done some studies on that, and the safest thing is to go naked. They don't attach to bare legs very well. A study back in, I think, Massachusetts did this, that they had different kinds of clothing. Levi's are a hard surface. Sweatshirts are great for attachment. Levi's are not so great. So yeah, the softer, they're able to hang on to that better. Yeah.
Pajamas.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
How does tick medicine for dogs work?
I'm sorry.
Tick medicine for dogs.
Tick what?
How does the treatment you give dogs
Oh.
work?
Like a flea and tick.
Yeah,
ball,
okay,
For
okay.
example.
So.
Medicine that they take.
Yeah. If you use,
Medicine they ingest.
Oh, to
Yeah.
prevent ticks.
Right. Okay.
I have not heard really good reports about any of them at this point.
So my observation is with Rona, our dog, is that the ticks don't latch on to her. Like they'll float out of her fur.
She's
Okay.
talking about preventatives like what we put on our cat.
Yeah. One of the things that bothers me about those kinds of things, not that one particularly, I guess, but if you have ivermectin or something and you got that, the tick will feed on you and die, but it's still there, and probably, there's still a chance of some infection. So whatever you use, you need to realize it's probably not a cure-all. There are things that have to go with it. We get questions all over, but he's got some with Zoom here.
Those more questions, because folks on Zoom have had these up for a while. Denise asks, you had mentioned that you won't see ticks in September very often. Like September is a quiet month. Where do the ticks go in September?
They're in the leaf litter. They're hanging out. They spend a lot of time after they get a blood meal. They're just hanging around there for months at a time. And ticks, they've kept ticks alive without feeding in the lab for over a year. So I mean, they're patient, and they don't need food every day, obviously.
Larry asked if light-colored pants were recommended because it's easier or it like the color repels the ticks, or it's easier to see them.
It's easier to see them.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think they don't have eyes, so.
Yeah, nothing about the pant particularly,
Right.
other than for our visibility. And it looks like maybe your colleague posted a link to how to dress in tick country.
Yeah.
On here. Doug asked, are ticks everywhere or just along trails?
Well, define everywhere, I guess. It's a good question, but again, the edge effect is what I think controls a lot of that. And trails have an edge, obviously. So, yeah, and as he pointed out, and I've experienced the same thing, you can walk out there off trail and it's very difficult to see a tick, but you get to the trail or an edge, they're there.
They're anywhere a potential host is,
Yeah.
and they're just waiting
Yeah.
to grapple on somebody.
Denise also asked, mentioned that when you were talking about tick removal and going slow, how long are you talking about? Are we counting in seconds?
I'm not counting at all. I'm just, getting that and holding on. And you have to be confident you can outweight the tick. But a little bit of pressure, not hard, but just a little bit, keep it there and it'll release.
So like slow and steady.
Slow and steady.
Okay, longer question here. Doreen asks, it is my understanding that suggested treatment is to have ticks removed and then to take single dose of an antibiotic, dioxazine, 200 milligrams to prevent Lyme's disease. As someone who has had Lyme's disease in Josephine County in 1999, I recommend being treated as soon as possible. So it's more of a statement.
Yeah.
Do you agree? I
agree. I'm not a doctor though, so you see a physician and see what the latest is on that.
Are the species of ticks, their hosts, and human disease significantly different in the Willamette Valley versus Southern Mass?
Yeah, they are actually. Although the one we don't see a lot of here, the dog tick, Western dog tick, I think, Dermacentor variabilis, can be found anywhere where there's a dog kennel. They're a dog tick, and they can be found in that kind of a situation where a lot of dogs together, and it's flat country, farmed. The vegetation is not going to be the same. And I'll just add one more thing about vegetation. I've always felt, and I've never published this at all, but I think oak trees are very important. And in the Willamette, there just aren't, in the bottom of the valley, there aren't as many oak trees there. Again, I think that refers to the leaf litter more than anything else, hardwood litter that is important.
Perhaps the acorns also create more hosts.
Yeah, the host, bringing hosts in too, sure.
Yeah.
Last one on Zoom. Allison says, you mentioned hard winters and that it doesn't necessarily stop ticks and that they benefit from the moisture from winters. But is that true in colder states like Minnesota or somewhere where the negative 20?
Well, I think you mentioned something also. In the wintertime, the human activity changes. And so we're not out there in the same places. So we don't see as much of that. And I worked with a guy from New York, Westchester County, named Dr. Derland Fish, who was the noted Lyme disease tick person back there. And he had never collected adult, it's Ixodes staphylaris back there, before. And so I went back there and worked with him a little bit and pointed those out to him. He said, I've never seen those out there like that. And I think the human activity is a part of that, but I think probably there might be a different seasonal thing too. They talk about Lyme disease being a springtime disease back east. And here it's not quite as firm as that. Got a question back here.
That's good on Zoom. We might revisit that if we have a chance. So go ahead.
I have a couple of questions. One, do both male and female bite you?
Do both male and female ticks bite?
Yes, they do. But again, the male, I should do that. Let's see. I can go back all the way. they're built differently. I have watched a male bite me as I was driving on my hand one time, but the female is that syringe and a needle, and that's black area around the head, basically. In the male, that extends all the way to the back. So it's a kind of a hard integument, and it can't expand as much as the females. So it can't take as much. What happens is it's built like this, and it can kind of raise up like this, but basically it can't get much bigger than that. So the danger from those are way less. Yeah.
My second question is, do the eggs have to be fertilized for in the female? You never mentioned that in the life cycle.
I didn't.
Do the eggs get fertilized internally during, like, is it?
Yeah,
internal
actually,
fertilization?
and I have, if you look closely on some of these things up here, I've got some males and females together, and as soon as I put them in together, they start mating. And yeah, they mate, and so that's fertilized. And I have recently read that the male has to be it has to have about 5 hours of time with the female before it will be able to mate. So often they mate while the female is feeding.
Yes, I'm wondering if there's anything that we can spray on ourselves to repel the ticks.
Yes, anything with permethrin in it, and it's a pretty safe, that's permethrin. And you can get information on that from Jackson County Vector Control.
How about DEET?
DEET, I don't think it works with ticks. It might, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think that question was.
But permethrin, you don't have to put on your skin. You can put it on your clothing, which is, I think, what she was asking.
We have an area in our yard that's infested because deer were napping there. And I'm wondering how we might get rid of the ticks without harming the bees and the earthworms and everything else.
She has a location in her yard that's heavily infested with ticks because deer nap there. Is there a way to get rid of the ticks without damaging other invertebrates and things in that area?
Well, yeah, get rid of the deer. I'm being facetious there. Yeah. You know, offhand, I can't think of anything that would specifically get rid of that situation. You know, if you could mow it or keep it weed whacked or something, it would help to some degree. It's bushes. Tough.
Are pesticides that work against mites also effective on ticks?
Yeah, but you know, if you're talking about that kind of control, you can talk about spitting in the ocean too. I don't think it's going to be practical.
Down on the end.
Would diatomaceous earth sprinkled in that area where the deer are, would that affect the ticks?
I don't think so, because basically I think most of the ticks are on the deer for that period of time. What you might be seeing if you're seeing ticks there off the deer is that the ticks have molted from the nymphal stage to the adult stage while there. They came off of the deer as a nymph and processed the blood and then became adults. So I'm not sure about diamond. It might work. Salt might work too.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you, and thanks for taking all those great questions. Oh, we had a comment. Whoa, why does the presentation on ticks make my skin itch?
Yeah, you start looking at these things.
Let me just say, we just started passing some vials around, keep them in pairs, but there's a jar of females and a jar of males. Just so you can compare them.
We got lots of thank yous and appreciation coming in on Zoom. For folks on Zoom, I apologize that you're not able to hold these live ticks. I know you all want to. But we're gonna go ahead and stop our recording and let you guys go. In the interest of this recording. Hope to see you next time and thank you for joining us.